Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan says more expertise is needed at Eskom to deal with the rolling blackouts. He says the board has been instructed to ensure necessary measures are taken to bring in a proper level of professionalism. The embattled utility has implemented stage 4 load shedding until Friday. Let's discuss this now with the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises. The chairperson is Khayalethu Magaxa, who's going to join us a little later. We've got the former Gauteng Premier Mbhazima Shilowa, who's joining us for this discussion, and the National Union of Mine Workers Acting General Secretary William Mabapa. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making time. William, let's start with you. It appears there are some people sleeping on the job at Eskom. The minister gave us an example last night that there was a time when the light was flashing, the pipe was leaking, the operator ignored that signal, and as a result, the whole unit was lost to the system, and that individual has been fired. What are you hearing from your members on the ground?
No, I think we must not point fingers to the workers when the very same minister, if there is a sleeping, he himself is sleeping on duty, and then he believes that when he wake up, then because he was dreaming, and then he wake up and hope that because he was dreaming, now the other people were also sleeping with him, and then they were dreaming and they must wake up. So we raised the problems of Eskom so many years ago. One of the problems that we then raised with them, it is when they released the engineers, others dismissing them, others giving them packages, that there will then be some challenges in Eskom. Now today, they will tell you that people are not working. So then they will say that they need experts. You must ask him how many engineers Eskom has given them the packages. The other issue that we also told them is that Eskom used to have 80 senior executive management, 80. Today, Eskom is having 500 senior executive.
Yeah.
How can a company survive?
Okay.
To us, the company can't survive because it's mismanaged.
Okay.
The minister who's heading it is mismanaging, is not heading it, so he can come and talk what he don't know.
Yeah,
He
Mr.
also
Shilowa,
know nothing about
if the minister is mismanaging it, and what I'm getting from Mr. Mabapa there is that the minister is trying to point fingers at the workers, but he is the one sleeping on the job. Who does the buck stop with?
The buck stops first and foremost with the minister and his board. Of course, it also does stop with the president insofar as he's keeping Mr. Gordhan there. My view is that, look, maybe PG is good in another portfolio. In that portfolio, he has really not been able to help move a needle. Also, the board that he has, it does not look like it knows what it's doing. But also you will remember, Clement, that that board itself is depleted, and I think very few people who are still in that board have an understanding of how an Eskom should be working about. So in my view, what we really need to be focusing on is obviously to be able to put a proper board. The board must run Eskom, must ensure that the management is accountable. And to an extent that management is failing, they must be able to deal with management. Management can deal with issues of workers, but generally, when things don't go well on a company, the first people to really look at is both the board and the minister, in my view.
Yeah. How do you measure that failure, Mr. Shilowa? I think the minister indicated last night that we're dealing here with an institution that has been decimated by state capture. I don't know how long we're going to be hearing about that destruction of state capture without, of course, us undermining how extensive that kind of decimation was. So he's saying that it's going to take some time, but I was trying to think back to 2015, thinking back to 2019, when the promises were made that we are getting there. We are going to get Eskom on good footing, and yet here we are. We're still struggling, and we get moved to stage 4, which is destructing and destroying the economy and of course leading to job losses. So how do we measure that failure? I mean, do we look at the years?
I think for me, you look at a number of things. The first one, as you say, is that when he came in, together with the president and the deputy president, they gave us a measurement that we must look at. They said within 18 months, this is what is going to be happening. This is how we're going to be dealing with issues of maintenance. We must be able to ask the question, 18 months later, what is happening? And I think you will find that very little is happening. But secondly, I think, Clement, we must also acknowledge that, yes, of course, there were issues of state capture and that we must not ignore those. But we must also be able to say, in my view, I think that things are more bad than we're made to see. If you can have blackouts, and I think that's really what we must call them. It's not load shedding, it's blackouts. If we can have blackout at stage 4, with an election about to happen, when children are out writing exam, when in fact the ruling party would rather want people focusing on its good work, it must mean that things are really very bad, because if they were not bad, they will try and make other things. So we measure it by the measurement that they gave us, but also in terms of the fact that very little is moving. PG and the government and the ANC must not make us look at state capture as if they were not party to it. I mean, if the president says that, look, in terms of corruption and other things, the ANC is also accused number one in the dock, it must follow that. Same happens for state capture.
Yeah. Mr. Mabapa, the minister last night said there's a need to bring in experts and people with relevant skills to supplement Eskom and support it so that it can fulfill its mandate. And I remembered a conversation I had with the German ambassador in South Africa, and he indicated that there were experts and technicians that arrived in the country, and they were heading to Eskom to help avoid load shedding. So what happened to those?
There were many experts that came. You'll recall that even when the failing power stations that were constructed were done, those power stations, the Medupi and the Kusile, they were not done by the South African companies. They were done by the companies that were classified as the experts. So you can, that's why I want to give you a scenario that says, if they say they call experts, they are calling their friends with no expertise. So the engineers or anybody who was called experts, they came. And they came, they are paid a lot of money. But the reality of the matter is that you don't understand what type of contracts they are signing. Because in my understanding, if I employ a person, I call him an expert, obviously, when I'm going to pay him, I'm going to secure my payment that if I pay you because you are an expert, if anything fails, you are going to take the responsibility because I hired you on an expert. And I'll take it that anybody that you hire as an expert, obviously come with a big price. Now, in South Africa, we are told that there is experts that are coming. But let me tell you, the problem of Eskom doesn't need any expert out of South Africa. There are many people that were working in that Eskom who were performing, when they were in Eskom was performing good. Now, those people, most of them, they are still alive. It is a pride. We do have a pride. Now, we are managing the pride that we see now, that we know there are experts who are from South Africa, who managed Eskom, who can come back because they also don't have pride. Who can come back? The problem is that we are accusing, we are doing this, we are doing this. The people that comes, they can call experts every day, every week, every month, spend all that money that is left that they can use to revamp Eskom in its current. The first thing, Mr. Shilowa raised very critical issues. It starts with the board. In South Africa, I will get my friend because I want him, he's my friend. Whether he has got capacity or no capacity, I will want him to be in the board. And because we also as South Africans, we are not ashamed. If I don't know anything, I won't tell people that I don't have capacity. I don't want money. I can't be in this board because I can't add value. So, and the very same with the CEO. Now, if you can ask, what do you know any credentials that Pravin Gordhan is having on electricity? Now, but he's the CEO. Now, those are the critical questions that we ask. So in South Africa, when we appoint a minister, there is no an issue about capacity. It is just a favor. Okay. It starts there. Yeah. When we appoint a minister, it's a favor. When we appoint a CEOs, it's a favor. When we appoint the board, it's a favor. Yeah. And Mr. today Shilowa, we are paying the big price.
Yeah, let me bring you in here. Yeah. So what must happen now? Because Mr. Mabapa raises the issue of experts that are still alive. I mean, is this the matter of when the minister talks about expertise that is needed to supplement the workforce at Eskom, is that a conversation of bringing back the workers at Eskom? Because my understanding is that there was a time when Eskom was trimming the fat and it was quite concerned about the bloated workforce. So are we then indirectly then going back to what the problem partly was for the power utility?
I think that for me, to an extent that the minister says we need to bring in experts from outside of Eskom, we need then to be able to look at whether those experts, some of them were people who were at Eskom, some of them are people who were never at Eskom. Yeah. And then to say, but if we bring them in, what is it that we bring them to do? Because it's very easy to then say, let's bring people in. But we have not been told this is the problem that we need to sort out. You know, you can't say there, well, we are not able to, from time to time, get proper light on when Clement is working, and therefore we're going to bring in experts. But we're really not sure what kind of expert are we looking at. Is it someone who needs to work on sound engineering or other things? So yes, it may be we need experts, but we need to be told what kind of expert is needed and why is it that such expert is not there. And we had been told 18 months ago that there were Italians coming in, Germans coming in. What happened to those people?
Yeah. So if the president, Mr. Shilowa, is serious about solving the electricity crisis, what should he be doing right now?
Yes. I think what he should be doing, first and foremost, is to find a new minister. Secondly, is to fire the whole lot of the board. And then the board need to be able to look at issues of management, of staffing, of expertise, and ensure that we're able to move on. I mean, imagine the president going to Soweto and saying to the people of Soweto, please don't punish us, we will sort out your electricity issues. But he is not able to ensure that through his minister, we do not have this load shedding. Remember, he came back from, I can't remember if it was Morocco, wherever, on an urgent basis, because we're somewhere at stage 4 and said, this is not going to happen again. But that's where we are. So that's where I would start. And for me, it's not whether or not PG should be in his cabinet. That is his decision to make. but I'm not sure that he's the right guy for the state-owned enterprises, definitely not Eskom.
But do you think the changes in leadership or even at the board level are going to make any difference? Because that doesn't change the material conditions and the material challenges that Eskom is dealing with. And the president has already, back in 2018, he came in and said, let's put in a new board. Came in and said, oh, here's the new CEO. But here we are. We're still stuck with this crisis.
Let's look at it differently. If we think that a new minister and a new board is not going to be able to make any changes, then it really means that we are saying we are really just scraping the barrel. In my view, everywhere, if you bring in a new minister, not because you really just want to bring the changes, but that you are able to sit down with that minister and say, look, this is the problem at Eskom. This is what I want sorted out. This is the time frame which I want sorted out. Secondly, you need to say to the minister, get a capable board. And then you say to the board, we are not as government going to decide on who the CEO is going to be. You're going to decide on the CEO because we will hold you and the CEO responsible. If the cabinet decide on the issue of a CEO, so you find that sometimes the board thinks, look, this guy is useless, but they may not want to remove the person because that decision didn't necessarily lie with them.
Yeah. Mr. Mabapa, do you agree with Mr. Shilowa that perhaps the changes at this political level and at the board level are what Eskom needs to deal with the crisis it's facing?
We raised the matter, I'm sure, even 3 years back, to say that the problem with Eskom is that we need to get a competent board. It's just that in South Africa, we are not ashamed. I feel very much strong that I can't sit in a board of a company, even for 12 months, that is failing. I will have to talk to my conscience that it is not about the money. It is about me being in a board, adding value, making sure that there are changes. To be honest with you, it's the same as the CEO. He is there. When he comes, we didn't comment, for example, as NUM. We said, no, we will judge him by his work. And seated where we are seated today, we can judge him by his work to say he came and there is nothing and absolutely nothing that is doing. In essence, we are getting stage 4 that we are not used to. Now, it is consciousness. I believe that the board of Eskom must follow their conscience, and the very same CEO must follow his conscience, including the minister. It doesn't help to come and raise issues as a minister when you know that there is no any improvement. I can say that he is a minister. There is no improvement in Eskom. Here is the CEO. There is no improvement in Eskom. Here is the board. There is no improvement in Eskom. Now, you can see that it is a career now. It is a career because what they become happy for is that month end, a lot of money comes. You know what is even painful?
And speaking of money, Mr. Mabapa, the minister mentioned the new provisions that are going to be introduced, which are going to ensure a pay at a certain levels of management that will be directly linked to performance. How do you feel about that as the unions?
No, but one other thing that worries us more is that we are told that the board of Eskom is paid monthly. It's like they're working at Eskom. To our understanding, a board doesn't sit every month. So a board sits at a certain intervals, and only when the board sits, then you get paid. Now, we find it very strange that this type of a board of Eskom, that is like employees of Eskom, they must start, if they want to be serious, let Eskom come and say we don't have money. All our executives are prepared to compromise their salaries And even the board is prepared to reduce their board fees. Eskom board is one of the highest paid board in this country.
Yeah, but
now
I'm asking about this incentive scheme, Mr. Mabapa. Do you support that as the unions, the incentive scheme where they will be looking at the performance at the level of management, and then that's going to be directly linked to the incentives?
I think that is not a fashionable issue. Every company, when they pay the senior management, they've got a process that they are paying them. So for now, we did not see what is the proposal.
Okay.
Because you see, something can come and then you think that is a right thing, only to find that the very same executive, they want to create a platform where they will start to pay themselves money. Let me give you an example. During this time, look at the financial statements of Eskom. During this time when Eskom has got this high debt, the very senior management of Eskom were paid bonuses. Look at their financial reports. Then you will see that no matter and the minimum that a person was getting, the minimum was 2 million.
Well, we'll check that out. We'll check that out, Mr. Mabapa. I'm not sure about the bonuses that were paid. I do know, though, that the debt has been reducing throughout the last financial briefings that we got from Eskom. Mr. Shilowa, let me give you the last word. We speak about the need for accountability at political level, at the board level, but at the end of the day, there's a governing party here that from 2007, when we were first introduced to load shedding, has been apologizing to South Africans. There has been warnings after warnings for the African National Congress and its government, its deployees in government, to prepare for what could be an electricity crisis. And here we are. So how do we hold them accountable?
I think that it's really up to voters, not just in terms of local government, but in general, to ensure that at all times, political parties are held responsible. I mean, the ANC is not only in terms of the poor planning, as was said from 2007, as was acknowledged by then President Thabo Mbeki, as was later acknowledged by then President Jacob Zuma or President Ramaphosa now. The ANC was also involved in terms of the people that were there in charge of Eskom, wherein they were also inputting both Kuselo and Mudupi. Hitachi Africa was put in there. And I think we know that not only did they not do a proper job, not only did the money balloon over a 10-year period that was supposed to be there, that they also brought in Chancellor House. So the ANC is itself complicit. But in terms of how people deal with it, it's up to the electorate. But secondly, I think sometimes even when the electorate may want to be able to punish the ANC, to an extent they really can't find an alternative that seems ready with a proper plan beyond dreams. That makes people say, well, what else can we do?
Yeah. Thank you to both of you for joining me for this discussion. The former Gauteng Premier Mbhazima Shilowa and the National Union of Mine Workers Acting General Secretary William Mabapa.